Programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades.
Well, I was a new mom and I had no experience taking care of a newborn.
There isn't like a book on how to raise a kid.
We come from like a lot of family history of, drugs, violence, alcoholism, so we didn't want our daughter to experience any of that.
The thought that a parent was supposed to be loving, nurturing, supposed to be there for their kid, provide food, shelter, joy, and going in, becoming a parent for her, I had no clue how to provide that.
Cómo pensar educarla, ajá. Cómo educar a un hijo porque pues nosotros nunca, es la primera vez que íbamos a ser padres.
What I think parents should know about home visiting is that you can learn a lot of new things and tips and tricks, how to take care of the baby and what to do, and if you're, stuck in a routine and everything being monotonous, like they give you new resources and new tools how to handle parenthood.
It was nice to have them kind of guiding me, even though I was not a first-time mom. I felt like a first-time mom.
It totally blew my mind over time. So much information that I had no idea about. She was straightforward when, teaching me this stuff and answered any of my questions. It's just a really positive experience.
What I think that parents could benefit with the program is just having someone here for you, especially for first-time parents. It can be very isolating and it can be very lonely, and having the home.
Good morning. The Mendocino County Planning Commission, August 3rd, 2023 meeting is called to order, and today's meeting is a hybrid meeting of the Planning Commission with participants both in person and digitally. The public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to PBS commissions at mendocinocounty.org or orally via telecomment in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made available to the commissioners, staff, and the general public after processing by staff and can be viewed as attachments to this meeting's agenda on the Planning Commission agenda page. To submit comments via telecomment, please use the telecomment form found at www.mendocinocounty.org/government/planning-services/meeting-agendas. Can we have roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Jones? Yes. Commissioner Purnell?
Here.
Commissioner Pollan?
Here.
Chair Wiedemann?
Here. All right. Do we have agenda item number 2? Do we have determination of legal notice?
Both matters on the agenda have been properly noticed.
Thank you. And do we have a director's report?
Madam Chair, yes, a real quick report. Nash Gonzalez, Interim Assistant Planning Director, and I just wanted to go ahead and advise the Planning Commission that on 7/25/23, the Board of Supervisors, on a 3-2 vote, denied the cannabis prohibition district in Redwood Valley, but did vote 5-0 to do direct enforcement, code enforcement in those areas of the prohibition district.
Thank you. Was that all you want to report on?
That's all, unless the commission has any questions of me regarding the department.
Do my fellow commissioners have any questions for Nash? Yes, Commissioner Parnell.
Hi, Nash. Do you have an update for us on the zoning code ordinance?
I can provide you with an update in which we just received the second administrative draft to the code, and staff is going through that. And last week we received the Division of Land Regulations that we're going through those already. And one of the things that we're trying to work with right now is with the state to try to get an extension on the LEAP grant to be able to fall within the timeline. So we're hoping within this next month, we can get the drafts to you for review.
Commissioner Jones.
So I'd just like to encourage you, Nash, to bring those drafts to us prior to starting CEQA in case we have substantive changes to make.
We will.
Okay, cool.
Commissioner
Back.
Pollan.
Just on another note, we don't have anything scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Is that clear that we are not having a planning commission meeting on the 17th? There's nothing on the website.
So I'm going to defer to our Commission Services Supervisor as far as any items coming forward, because again, in order to have a commission meeting in 2 weeks, those items would have been already noticed.
Yeah, and only matter I have is a ag preserve for 2 weeks out. And then after that, I don't have anything scheduled until second meeting in September. So the first meeting in September right now is just open because if there's any continuances, they have to go into that slot.
So there is no meeting on the 17th currently.
I know, I have not loaded that stuff into the computer yet.
Okay.
I can't notice it until after this meeting.
Okay.
I can't put it on the web until after.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
Can I make a suggestion if there's only one item that we just hear that in September, along with whatever other items come forward? Because it's a long way to drive for a simple little item.
It's already been noticed through the newspaper and everything. I can't pull it back.
Maybe we can talk about that at the end of the meeting when we talk
Okay, we'll
about
add that.
agenda items.
Right, about consolidating our meetings, so to speak, when there's short 1 or 2 items.
If I may, through the
Yes,
chair.
yes.
If you only have one item, that might be one where you do the meeting virtually, since we're still doing,
We can't do that.
we
No.
still have to have,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so based on council's direction, no.
Good try, though.
I'm just
We
trying
tried.
to make things easier for the commission.
Yeah.
We appreciate
We
that.
appreciate that very much. Any other items that we have just for the director at this point? Okay. That moves us on to agenda item number 4, matters from the public. Members of the public are welcome to address the Planning Commission on items not listed on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is prohibited by law from taking actions on matters not on the agenda. Individuals wishing to address the Planning Commission under matters from the public may do so via email or Zoom. For information on these methods, call the Planning and Building Department at 707-234-6650 or visit www.mendocinocounty.org/government/planning-services/meeting-agendas. All correspondences will be attached to the item and made available online on the Planning Commission agenda page. If any members of the public logged into Zoom meeting wish to speak under public expression and have not completed the telecomment form, please use the raise hand feature to allow staff to add you to the meeting. Do we have any requests for public expression or telecomment?
I did not receive any correspondence.
All right. Are there any members of the public in the room who wish to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public expression at this time and move on to our consent calendar. I need a motion to address and to approve the minutes for July 20th, 2023.
I'd move that we approve the consent calendar.
Mm-hmm. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan.
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell.
Yes.
And Chair Wiedemann.
Yes.
Motion passes
Thank you.
unanimously.
So we move on to item number 6A, and our regular calendar. Case number MS 2020-0006, Jack Rafter Incorporation, LLC, minor subdivision of one legal 6-acre parcel comprised of APNs 16-190, excuse me, I'll go back, APN number 167-190-08 and 167-230-03, creating two separate legal parcels of 2.1 plus minus acre and a 3.9 plus minus acres. I'm going to open the public hearing now. So has there been any correspondence on the, for this item via telecomment? Okay. And with hearing that, does staff have presentation ready? Thank you.
All right, can you hear me? Yes, good morning. Commissioners, Mark Kleiser, Planner 2, planner for this project. As noted, the project is a subdivision of one legal 6-acre parcel, which is comprised of 2 assessor parcel numbers, and this will be split into 2 separate legal parcels. The project has been brought before the Planning Commission before and was continued. Staff and the applicant have been in communication since these items have been continued, and they have arrived to an agreed upon set of conditions of approval, which you have before you today. The project is located approximately 4.5 miles north of the city of Ukiah, lying on the east side of North State Street, approximately 0.3 miles north of its intersection with Poma Lane. It is addressed at 4661 and 4681 North State Street, and the assessor parcel numbers are 167-19008 and 167-23003. At present, the 2 APNs that comprise the one legal parcel feature a number of structures, including 5 single-family residences and 1 duplex. These structures were constructed prior to adoption of Title 20 of the Mendocino County Code. As such, they are considered to be legal nonconforming per Mendocino County Chapter 20.204. The northern portion of the legal parcel is undeveloped, and that is featured here. And this is the southern portion of the legal parcel. As seen here, the applicant proposes the northern 2.1 acres as parcel 1, that's here, and the southern 3.9 acres into a remainder parcel. And here is an approximation of the proposal in aerial view. So this northern portion would be parcel 1, and all this parcel here in gray would be the remainder parcel. Access to the remainder parcel will utilize the northern access off of North State Street, as indicated here. Mendocino County Department of Transportation requested an access easement through the remainder parcel to be established to serve the newly created parcel 1, as they felt new access along the newly developed parcel 1 posed a risk. That would be here. DOT has requested a notation shall appear in the unilateral agreement restricting direct access onto North State Street from parcel 1 by dedication of a no access strip along the boundary of parcel 1, right here in yellow. This is reflected in condition of approval number 20 and was included for safety reasons due to speed limit on North State Street and a blind hill. And I will show that here. So here we have a view of, this here will be the no access strip. And then this is the hill that DOT had concerns with. So access will then be provided through here. And this is the remainder parcel to the right, and parcel 1 will be here to the left. The parcel is and will remain, parcel is and will remain suburban residential in both its general plan and zoning designations. The project is consistent with the general plan designation, and as the project is not in a sewer district but is in a water district, it will meet the required 12,000 square foot minimum. It satisfies the intention of the suburban residential general plan designation for residential activities which support future growth. The project is also consistent with the suburban residential zoning designation, as it will allow for additional residential uses. Proposed lot sizes are compliant with the zoning district per Mendocino County Code 20.044.025. The tentative map shows the structures on the remainder parcel more than adequately meet the required 6-foot setback, as indicated here. This structure is set back 23 feet, and this one is 30 feet. Maps generated by Planning and Building Services did not indicate the presence of sensitive species or wetlands on site. Additional research was conducted using CDFW's biogeographic information and observation systems and the National Wetlands Wetland Mapper. Staff did not identify sensitive species or wetlands on site. The project is not in a floodway or a flood zone. Staff prepared a memo dated July 27, 2023 for the Commission, noting the applicant requested a minor revision to the language for the recommended road improvement condition number 18, and staff has no concerns with this revision. An initial study was prepared for the project and completed in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. No significant impacts to the environment were identified as a result of the project, therefore a negative declaration was prepared. It was noted that future development could have some impacts, however, these were considered to be less than significant impacts. Staff recommends the Planning Commission by resolution adopt a negative declaration and approve minor subdivision 2020-0006 with amended condition of approval number 19 as presented this morning. And I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Jones?
I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Pollan?
Just a couple quick ones. I noticed that the applicant is Jack Rafter LLC, but on the parcel map, it lists the owner as Alexander Maida. I'm just curious about that discrepancy.
This may have been the previous owner and was not captured in the parcel map at the time.
The other question was about water service. I noted the letter from Millview Water said that the site is currently served by Millview Water. This is attachment P. But that if the property is split, the new parcel will not have access to the water that is currently being provided. But it says they have the capacity to serve. So is it our understanding that they would have to pay for a new connection fee, but that they would be allowed to access that water if they do so?
Yes, that is my understanding.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Commissioner Parnell?
Thank you. I had a question about the ownership as well. That got taken care of. And my only other comment is that I really loved seeing the VMT analysis included. I like seeing what you guys see.
Thank you.
And at some point, it might be nice to have like a quick 10 or 15-minute tutorial for the commission on that, just because it's helpful and kind of neat, and it would be great to understand that. So thank you. Good staff report.
And I have no questions. It seemed that the encroachment has been addressed. So that was when I was reading the staff report at the beginning, I was kind of like, well, how are they actually entering that parcel? So I thank you for that. I have no further questions. And seeing that, then, do we have the applicant present? I'm going to invite you to do your presentation. Please, as you come up, state your name and.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Commission. My name is Aaron Curry. I'm legal counsel for the applicant. Dave Flum here on behalf of the applicant as well. We really don't have a formal presentation prepared. We feel that the staff report adequately disclosed the facts about the proposed minor subdivision, and really we're here to just address and answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you. Does Commissioner Pollan have any questions for the applicant?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, I'm just noticing now that there's a letter from Rhiannon Cormel, who's with California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and she requested that a biological assessment and a wetland assessment be done of the property. Were you aware of that? Did you think about doing that and then decided not to, or what happened?
Yes, I mean, my understanding is that it was a suggestion. We've adequately addressed that in the conditions of approval, and based on the findings of staff at this time, we understand that the county is essentially not concerned that there is any significant biological issue at the property. If that changes and county recommends or requests that we move forward, I think we would consider it at that time.
Any further comment, Commissioner Jones?
Well, I guess I should really address my question to the staff, so I'll wait for the next round.
Okay. Commissioner Paulin. Oh, Parnell.
Parnell.
Nothing
Sorry,
from me. Thank you.
sorry there. Glad to have you back. No questions. I also had a note on that, just questioning, and because now my question's going to go to back to staff for that. How did you resolve the Fish and Wildlife's report?
Mark Kleiser, Planner 2. Yes, we received that recommendation from CDFW. Staff was unable to identify, however, any sensitive species directly on the parcel or any wetlands directly on the parcel. So we went with the decision, this was in conversation with the applicant, to forego those recommendations.
Can I ask
Commissioner Jones?
Yeah. So are you a certified biologist? I'm just not clear how you would have I wouldn't have the expertise to go on a property and determine whether or not a wetland was there or rare plants were there. So
If I may, through the commission, through the chair, the area is generally disturbed. And as Mr. Kleiser pointed out, the property is not in a floodway, a flood zone. The property did not show any signs of what we call biological issues. And again, no, we're not qualified biologists. However, oftentimes what will happen is CDFW will look at everything in general, and there may be issues associated with the river, but they may just throw out a general condition. And this again requires staff to look at the California Diversity Natural Database. It requires a site view, and so on. We oftentimes get conditions like this or recommendations even on ag lands that have been disturbed, but again, they're just general recommendations. So based on staff's analysis and site view of the property, they determined that at this point there wasn't going to be a requirement for a biological analysis. However, if the applicant were coming in for a major subdivision to disturb the entire site, because all this is just a subdivision, it's not an actual development of structures out there. If that were the case, then definitely staff would have said, as part of the environmental review, you would need to do a biological analysis.
I have a follow-up question too.
Commissioner Jones?
Sorry, I have another follow-up question. So I'm looking at the photos in the PDF on page 27, 28, and 29.
Can you put those up,
Yes.
please?
Okay.
So what I see in these photos is a clear ditch. Usually ditches are developed to deal with water. That's the typical purpose. And then I also see standing water. And it also looks like it's a little hard to tell because the photo's kind of out of focus. I don't really know if that's blackberry or what. So the thing that this raises for me, just as a planner, is you did CEQA, which is kind of a pain and a lot of work. And you kind of need to have a report to rely on. I don't think I understand that it's a minor subdivision, and so I might feel comfortable letting it slide with an additional special condition requiring a biological study before any new development happens on the parcel. The thing that you risk in a situation like this, and excuse me if it feels lectury, I don't mean to be trying to be helpful, is if you create a parcel that's not developable because there are resources there, then the person who owns that parcel has the ability to require a takings analysis to do development even if there are resources there. And so you run the risk of creating a situation that will later obligate development where maybe development shouldn't happen because we don't have enough information to ensure that development shouldn't happen. If the whole site was developed, I would be less concerned, but it sounds like the new parcel is largely undisturbed. And so that just raises the issue for me. Like, you know, in the coast, when I was community development director of Fort Bragg, we wouldn't do this. So, so I'm just expressing a little reservations about it, and it's just, it would be nice if there had been a biological study done so we could know for certain, and we don't, and so we run the risk of creating a parcel that later could be found to be undevelopable or not have a very big envelope because we don't know, and these guys may have wasted their time. And it may be nothing. There may be nothing there. We just don't know. So.
Staff, do you have any feedback?
Mark Kleiser, Planner 2. If you could scroll to the previous photos, I believe. No, maybe a little bit further. One more. Oh, no, further down maybe. Staff, I didn't include it. Staff did visit the site post a rainstorm, and there was a lot of standing water on the parcel, but there was no indication of water running through these channels, which is why we were comfortable with foregoing the requirement for biological or wetland analysis, because there was nothing going through the channels at that time.
What time of year was that? At the beginning of the season or at the end of the rain season?
It was January 2021.
So kind of in the middle of a drought.
But yes, but it was post-storm, but yes.
Yeah.
So, any other comments from the commission at this time for the applicant? Or, okay.
If I may, I do have Vance Ricks, one of the applicants, with his hand raised.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I have Vance Ricks, one of the applicants, online with his hand raised.
May we, okay. Let's have, I didn't hear the name. You have to speak louder.
Vance Ricks.
Vance Ricks. Okay, got it. So, yes, let's ask him to speak, and please state your name for the record. Are we able to get him?
He's unmuted, but we're not getting any volume from him.
Me okay?
Oh,
now we can hear you.
Good morning,
now we can hear you.
My name is. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Vance Ricks. I'm a land surveyor and working with Jack Rafter on this minor division. If we can scroll down one picture, what you're looking at, what you see is that reflection. That is Granite Construction's yard. That is not water. The Russian River is about an additional 600 feet to the east. So what you see as pertained water, that is Granite's construction yard that you're seeing reflecting off there. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Do you have any other comment at this time?
Other than if you have any other questions pertaining to that.
Fellow commissioners, Commissioner Pollan?
Just a quick question. I'm looking at aerial map of the parcel right now with the granite construction site next to it. And I'm just curious about the sort of the length and depth of that ditch that we see on those photographs on pages 27 through 29 of the packet. Do you have an approximate length of that?
It's almost like a 60-foot vertical drop from the easterly edge of the boundary, which sits about, I want to say, 7 or 8 feet to the west of that bank. It drops vertically 50 feet, and the actual railroad tracks are at the base right there. So if it doesn't appear natural, it could have been done who knows how long ago when this was part of something in the 1900s because of the massive trees that are sitting there.
But does that drainage ditch run the length of the parcel from State Street to that drop off on the edge, or is it just a portion of the parcel?
It's just that small little piece you see right there on the westerly end of the boundary. And I don't even recall if it's even on our property to begin with.
Staff, can you point that with your pointer?
The location of the channel in the photograph?
Yes. I don't know if you could blow it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's what that would look like from the photograph.
The very eastern side.
Correct.
Great, thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions from the commission at this time? Seeing none, I am going to now go to any public comment. The commission will now hear public comment on this item. The commission will start with public comments in the room and then hear from telecommenters that are connected virtually via Zoom. And since
We don't need, the applicant doesn't need to stay at the lectern.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Cliff. When called to speak, please state your name for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Speakers are asked to please address their comments to the meeting chair and to refrain from using profanity or engaging in conversation with members of the audience. And do we have at this time any individuals wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to ask staff for their final remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Russ Ford, Senior Planner. So just to encapsulate this conversation about the biological study, based on the materials and the information that staff had at the time and conversation with the director, it was chosen not to require that as a condition of approval. It is certainly within the commission's purview to require that. However, if you do, staff would request a continuation for time to complete that study and return with the results of the study, as opposed to trying to condition this on a future study, which is not allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any final comments from the applicant? Oh, please go up to the...
Good morning.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Flum, the
Okay.
applicant. In the very beginning of this process, both Mr. Ricks and I and the other gentleman helping me provided anecdotal data, historical data. Mr. Kleiser has that on file. That clearly shows that this particular property has been disturbed since the late 1890s and early 1900s. I mean, they actually had a farm there. So I just want to point that out. That's a very important thing that everybody seems to have overlooked at this point. And that information was supplied as part of this whole process. And I think that element also helped staff make a determination that there was no further requirement. So just wanted to put that out there. Do you recall that document? Okay. So maybe you can fill them in on that document that was presented as well. Okay. That would be helpful. I don't know that it's part of the file.
It is part of the file.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any Zoom comments at this time?
No members of the public on Zoom.
All right. And now I'm just going to go back to staff. You were saying, you were replying to
Yes,
the
Mark Kleiser, that document. Could you-
I think it's in our report.
So these are the, oh, it's not. These are the documents that were provided by the applicant. This is an old aerial photo. And this document here does have indication of a stream, but as discussed earlier, there was no water through that stream at the time the site visit. There are no wetlands indicated on there on any maps that staff reviewed, nor are there any sensitive species on the parcel.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff at this point before we bring it back for the commission? Commissioner Jones? No? Commissioner Pollan? Nope. Commissioner Purnell? And Chair Wiedemann has nothing at this point. Okay, with that, I'm going to bring it back to the commission for discussion and a possible motion. And so I'll open it up to Commissioner Parnell.
Thank you. I appreciate the questions about, what happens with these fish and wildlife recommendations when they just kind of evaporate. I think it's good for the commission to follow up on that. I am satisfied with staff's response and analysis. Also, just looking at the maps on the site and understanding that this has been a disturbed area for a long time. I'm also looking at the uses to the east and west and north, and these are pretty, industrial, commercial uses. It's, surrounded by basically North State Street and a highway, and then a gravel yard and a railroad, and then a mobile home park to the north. And I'm just not concerned that a subdivision of this parcel is going to impact the hydrology of the site. I just think that the impact has already occurred. So given that, and I do appreciate the discussion on it, I'm prepared to approve this today.
Before we continue, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
And I see Jim looking at me. Commissioner Jones.
Sure, thanks so much, Chair. So I'm still having a little bit of a challenge. For me, looking at the aerial photo that shows the gravel area and the mobile home park to the north, this site is considerably greener than any of the other area around it. To me, that indicates that there is water in that area. I would like to suggest that the commission include a special condition to require a biological survey for any future development of the new parcel. Not that a biological survey would be required now to approve this subdivision, but only that a biological survey would be required for any future development. And the reason I'd like to put that condition on there is because we really don't know, one, and two, sometimes you can have projects that come in that don't require a use permit or any kind of permit. All they do is require a building permit because they're allowed by right. And in that situation, you would have no biological report ever completed for a development where we just, we don't know. And, I've looked at lots of biological reports for places in Fort Bragg that looked like there was nothing there, and you find stuff. Even in fields that are heavily mowed. Like, there's a site in Fort Bragg on Glass Beach Drive that's heavily mowed every year, and it's filled with a rare ryegrass that loves being mowed. So there you go.
All right, Commissioner Pollan.
I think Commissioner Purnell's statements pretty well encapsulated my feelings as well.
All right. And as Commissioner Wiedemann here, I think it's, I guess because we have had so many ISHA studies being on within the coast and the Coastal Act and the requirements that I believe for myself, I am more sensitive. I'm not saying more sensitive. We're just used to these being part of the process when there are findings of, or, you know, that was an old stream or was, and I understand that this is a parcel that has industrial to the east and, you know, build out to the north, and it's critical. At this point, I'm willing to support the subdivision, and I also would support before development that there be a biological study done on this parcel because it'll define. It may not mean that it's not going to be able to be developed by any means, but they may just flag an area that has a special species. So that's where I am. And with that, I'm going to say, is there a motion at this time? Commissioner Pollan.
I would recommend, here, let me get the language in here. I would recommend approval of the resolution as amended, approving the subdivision MS 2020-006. Resolution of the Planning Commission, County Mendocino, State of California, adopting a negative declaration and approving a unilateral agreement for waiver of parcel map for a minor subdivision of one parcel into one lot and a remainder, as was presented in the red line memo dated July 27th, 2023.
Second?
Commissioner Parnell.
If I may, through the chair, very quickly, could staff have maybe 5 minutes to revise the reso with a tentative condition for the biological study, if that's the way that the commission would like to go?
That's not the motion that I made.
Right. So, and Commissioner Parnell seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Purnell,
Yes?
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
No.
Commissioner Wiedemann.
No.
Motion fails.
So maybe we will be taking staff up on the offer.
Yeah. So, let's make see if another motion on the is presented. So, Commissioner Jones.
Sure, I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution to approve the subdivision with the following additional requirement. We will add a new item number 4 that says the following note shall be placed on the unilateral agreement stating all future development on the northern parcel, whatever number that is, I don't know, shall require a biological survey completed prior to approval of any building permit or planning permit. Thanks. That was totally quick. Feel free to massage it.
Yes, County Council.
Deputy County Council Matthew Kudrowski, 2 comments. One is if we want to ask the applicant if they have any desire to speak or comment on this proposed item or proposed new condition. And secondly, just to go back to staff's comment on perhaps having this as a continuance instead, to have this done now as opposed to a future study placed on the map for all future development.
All right. Does the applicant wish to comment on what's being added to the motion? And you could wish for a small break if that would be helpful to you. Okay.
Thank you for giving us another opportunity to
Yes, and state your name again, please.
My name is Aaron Curry, legal counsel to the applicant. I just want to point out again and reiterate that we think the findings speak for themselves. We hear the commissioner's concerns, but given the nature of the development to the east, as Commissioner Parnell said, the trailer park to the north, State Street, and the prior history there, these recommendations from the state agencies are recommendations. We have a thorough staff analysis that supported the conclusion that given prior survey data and other information, you have a site walk, that there really is no indication that there are any type of sensitive uses there at the property. And this imposes a substantial extra cost in development for the applicant, which we shouldn't lose sight of. So while we understand the concern, ultimately the risk is really on the applicant to the extent that if there was some type of endangered species or wetland or some issue, the risk really falls to the applicant in future development. So we think that the current conditions of approval are adequately supported, and we would request that they would be approved as is. However, if the commission were to come up with a additional condition, we would suggest that at most it require a biological study on actual building permit and development. I heard the notion of a requirement for that study to take place on any future planning, and we would suggest that at minimum it would be pushed out to development so that there can be a decision on improvement when it really matters at that point, that there would be a study imposed.
I believe that the Commissioner Jones stated that a biological study would be only requested if a building permit, more development would be.
I actually included a planning permit as well, and frankly,
okay.
a planning permit is
The road, the driveway, everything on the parcel, any
no,
development.
that's a use permit or design review or conditional use permit or further subdivision. That's what I'm talking about, or a building permit. No, I'm not talking about some rezoning effort in the county or something. No, just this parcel. And I appreciate what you're saying. However, like, you're asking us to make a decision without the information we require. You've had 2 years to do a biological study. A biological study of that parcel costs less than $5,000. It's not actually very expensive.
I mean, I guess my common response is we were basing our decision on staff recommendation, a thorough discussion with staff, and this particular matter has taken over 2 years to get to this point at considerable cost to the applicant. So I just want to make clear the applicant isn't trying to cut corners, but this has been a very lengthy minor subdivision process for the applicant. And so, of course, it's trying to do this on a budget, but certainly meeting all the concerns and recommendations of the staff and getting to this point. So I want to make that clear that this isn't a push on behalf of the applicant to skirt some legal requirement or to try to shoehorn a subdivision through. We're really moving in a direction where, given the input from the surveyor, who is a professional, obviously, from staff and what have you, that's how we reached this point.
All right, thank you. Since we have a new motion, and we haven't gotten a second yet, is there a second from Commissioner Pollan?
Not as it's currently worded. I'm curious, again, I know you have more expertise in the planning realm than many of us, Commissioner Jones, what your sense is from the request of the applicant to limit it just to a building permit as opposed to any planning permitting process, and would that meet your concerns?
It's a little bit irrelevant. If you're having a planning permit, you have to do CEQA anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, assumedly the staff would require a biological analysis. So it would be strange to take it out, I guess would be my answer. Because then it would imply that at the planning permit stage, you wouldn't do a biological analysis, which would be the least likely option. The more likely option is that when you get a building permit, at that point you're doing a permit that's by right, and so you never require a biological analysis at the building permit stage, and that's why you need to do it at the subdivision stage, because otherwise you just don't know. So you have two types of projects that come forward, right? There's the type that just goes to the building department. There's no use permit, no design review, no subdivision, nothing else required. There's no CEQA involved in those. They're just allowed by right. And so there's no opportunity to have any biological report done at that point, which is why at the subdivision stage you generally do that analysis so that you're certain that there's nothing there when you're creating a new opportunity for development. That said, if someone's getting a planning permit, unless it's for a very small project, less than 2,500 square feet, they usually have to do CEQA. And at that point, they would then usually require a biological report because you're actually doing something in an area, like physical development, yes? So, yeah, I don't think his argument really, to me, has merit. It's either you require it or you don't require it, because if you require it at the building permit stage, you're always going to have that there, whether or not you had to get a planning permit or not, I guess. One of the things that, like, I would just worry about with timing is usually if someone's doing a building permit, they're like ready to go. And a proper biological survey takes a few months. And so they'd go to the counter with their building permit all ready to go, and then maybe if the county actually looked at their files, the county would say, oh, you need a biological study. And then they'd have to go get somebody to do that. So again, that's why you usually want to do this at this stage. Now, it's a matter of opinion about whether one is required or not, right? And that's the challenge we have right now. Right. So we have a split commission about whether one is required. Right. So for us to get 3 votes, which you'd have to get for it not to be considered a denial, you need 3 of us to agree. We need to come to some sort of compromise.
Commissioner Parnell, do you have anything to add to the conversation?
Well, no, I agree with Commissioner Jones's ultimate summary, which is that we got to figure something out so that we can move this forward, because I don't think any of us ultimately want to deny this. No. But if in order to get the 3 votes, we need to make some accommodation for that biological study, then we need to figure out if we're going to include that as a condition, which if I understand correctly, that's what the applicant is asking for, or if we want to go the direction that staff recommended, which is to continue this. So at this point, I would actually put that question to staff to help us understand why that would be most beneficial to continue this if we do in fact want to add language requiring the biological.
Thank you for that question. Russ Ford, Senior Planner. So I just wanted to reiterate the caution about future studies, which are prohibited. So if we are doing something like this, it would be beneficial to have the results of this study so that we could appropriately condition it. If there were no impacts, there would be no conditions. If there were a wetland or something delineated, we could establish a building setback or something around it. But it's hard to condition something based upon a future study where you don't know what that study is going to say. Exactly. There was actually a legal case decided against that. So staff would request continuance if the commission would like to have the study.
So
Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to ask a clarifying question. So our condition for the biological study would not be a condition that would be a future condition on the subdivision. So the subdivision would be able to proceed forward with the current CEQA analysis. That condition would apply to any future development on the parcel. And so I'm not certain because I'm not an attorney, but I recognize what your concern is, that with CEQA you can't require future studies for something. Right. And in this case, the CEQA is just for the subdivision, and the future study that we would be requiring would not be for the subdivision, it would be for future development. So I think that you can thread the needle.
I agree it would be a fine line. I would defer to counsel if he has an opinion.
Yes.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, whether it's a fine line or not, it certainly would be, because frankly, we're not just, we're not doing it now. And so we're saying in the future, we have to figure out what this thing is that we've talked about in this meeting as requested being done at the time of subdivision. So I don't think it necessarily goes on the line of not being a future condition. I think that's a semantic game that gives me pause for thought. If the commission actually wants to see this and has concerns about the study and rationale by staff, I'd probably say let's continue it. Let's do that study now so there isn't something hanging out there on a map. So at the time of a building permit, we have to try and catch that, make sure everyone's aware of it, and it gets done as opposed to not getting it done at all. And it is clearly tied to the biological study done as part of, or biological portion of the CEQA analysis. So trying to say it's separate from that, I'm not sure I agree.
I'm Commissioner Wiedemann. I'm going to move my position to being that we are at this juncture and being that this parcel has been, I'm sure overutilized in its day and its location. And I just want to say the conversation's important about Isha's and staff. And I don't know if, I certainly couldn't, I'm not a registered biologist to make those decisions. And so I would say to staff, better to bring one on, right, for the next time. But being that this applicant has gone through this process for a number of years, and it's really a parcel split, and that I have an industrial site right next door, I'm willing to approve this with a new motion. Commissioner Pollan.
All right. Well, given that, I would like to recommend approval of the resolution of the Planning Commission, County of Mendocino, State of California, adopting a negative declaration and approving a unilateral agreement for waiver of parcel map and for a minor subdivision of one parcel into one lot and a remainder in case MS 2020-006 as is amended in the red line edition presented to the Commission on July 27th, 2023.
Second?
Do I have a second, Commissioner Parnell?
Yes.
Okay. County Counsel.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, as a matter of procedure, I think there had been a motion on the floor. Ms. Jones's motion, I'm not sure there's ever a second.
It didn't get a second.
Okay.
No.
So that motion would fail.
Yeah.
With no second.
No, right. That's what happened.
Okay, Commissioner Purnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Can I say something before I say yes?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I am going to vote yes, but I'm doing it with concern and hope that staff doesn't rely on their own non-professional judgment about biological and wetland resources in the future. Yeah, so yes.
And Chair Wiedemann.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, and thank you for participating. And all right, it's obvious why I just want to say a few words just to staff, why that's important. The due diligence, right? And you do a great report. You do it, so appreciated. And when I read the report, I said, why isn't there one that's asking for that, right? So that was, so here we are. We move on. We're a little smarter, brighter, and thank you very much. Thank you. So let's move on to, everybody fine to continue? Okay, let's go on to item number, let me go to the next item. 6B, case A 2022-0005, the Wildland Surveillance Agriculture Preserve application to establish a 3,864-acre preserve over 16 parcels and place the land under a Williamson Act contract. I'm going to open the public hearing, and we have any comments from telecomments or correspondence?
I haven't received any comments.
Okay. May I have staff presentation then?
Yes, good morning, everyone. This is Liam Crowley, planning staff. I have a brief presentation for you today, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. So as was stated, this is Agricultural Preserve A 2022-0005 for the Wildlands Conservancy. This is, if I can, one moment here. There we go. So this is a request for simultaneous agricultural establishment of a simultaneous agricultural preserve and Williamson Act contract. This land is comprised of 16 assessor parcel numbers. It's about 10 to 15 miles northwest of Covelo, and it's bounded by the Trinity County line to the north, and you'll see the Eel River to the west and the North Fork of the Eel River to the south. So a bit of information about the project. The land is part of what was known as the Lone Pine Ranch and the White Ranch, which extends into both Trinity and Humboldt County, and that's now known as the, this portion and the portion in Trinity County is now known as the Eel River Canyon Preserve. The applicant, as I said, is requesting simultaneous establishment of an agricultural preserve and Williamson Act contract. And in brief, the contract would restrict the use of the land to agricultural and compatible uses in exchange for a reduced property tax. Certain requirements for the establishment of the preserve and contract must be met. I'll go over those in a moment. So the proposed preserve would be 3,864 plus minus acres over 16 assessor parcel numbers. And the land is currently used for cattle grazing. And the grazing lease was provided in the application materials. And this map on the right is just showing kind of the surrounding existing Williamson Act contracts in this area. So as far as consistency with the general plan and zoning, both the parcels are all within the rangeland general plan classification and zoning district. And this classification and zoning district is specifically intended for land that's eligible for incorporation into preserves. And the establishment of a preserve and Williamson Act contract is supported by this general plan goal and several other general plan policies which are noted in the staff report. And then the requirements I mentioned earlier for establishing an agricultural preserve and Williamson Act contract, these are outlined in the county's policies and procedures. In section 4.3, as I mentioned, the proposed preserve is within the rangeland zoning district, and the preserve is greater than 100 acres in area. And per section 5.3, the contract would be established concurrently with the proposed preserve, has been devoted to existing agricultural use, meets the minimum parcel size requirements, and meets the annual income requirements as discussed in the staff report. I did just want to note the Resource Lands Protection Committee, RLPC, did express some concern regarding the share of reported income derived from the Mendocino County portion of the ranch. As I mentioned, portions of the ranch extend into Trinity County and Humboldt County, and so I did confirm with the applicant that the same logic that they use for reporting their income to the county is the same was used by staff, and that's basically taking the entire acreage of the ranch, or the entire income from the ranch in all counties, and dividing that by the entire acreage of the ranch in all counties to get a dollar per acre value of the land, I guess you would say, and then multiplying that by the portion that's only within Mendocino County to get the income that's only derived from the Mendocino County portion. And based on that analysis, the income requirement was met. So planning is just recommending by resolution that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this Agricultural Preserve and Williamson Act contract to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the findings contained in the resolution. So that's all I have. I'm available for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Pollan, any questions or comments? Staff.
I'm just curious why this hasn't been in Williamson Act already.
I'm not sure about that. I would probably defer to the applicant to speak about that. But as far as I know, this land was acquired relatively recently by the Wildlands Conservancy, and beyond that, I don't really have any additional information.
Great. Thanks.
Commissioner Jones?
Really interesting project. Have you had any interactions with the Wildlands Conservancy, and did they tell you what their goals for the property are, if any?
No, I have very basic knowledge, I guess, of the Wildlands Conservancy, but I haven't had any detailed discussion about what their intentions are. As far as I know, the intent is, I guess, perhaps eventually to have the ranch be a portion of the proposed Great Redwood Trail. Again, I would defer to the applicant.
Yes, Commissioner Parnell.
Thank you. I had a question on the numbers. So the acreage that we're seeing here is the 3,864 acres. Is that the Mendocino County portion? That's the Mendocino County portion. Okay. So then that times $2,000 an acre for the Williamson Act requirement, no? That's like $7.7 million. Help me out here, because I'm not crunching them right.
I'm communicating non-verbally. I
Yeah.
apologize. Russ Ford, Senior Planner. So the requirement is $2,000 for the gross operation, and then $2.50 per acre. So it'd be $250 times 3,000 plus
Okay,
2,000.
great. I was not seeing the $7.7 million.
That would be quite a threshold.
It'd be quite a threshold. Yeah, great. That's why I wanted to just clarify. Okay, good. So I'm satisfied with that. And then just for the other commissioners, if you haven't gone to the Wildlands Conservancy website to see what their recent acquisitions have been in the Eel River Canyon, they're mobilizing. And they're, buying a lot of acreage along the Eel River Canyon, kind of calling it, I think, like the String of Pearls or something along there. Anyhow, it's pretty exciting.
It's the Eel River Emerald Necklace.
That's what
but
it
close.
is. Emerald necklace.
Of course, it's emerald.
Right. Yeah, because they've picked up quite a few nice properties along there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones? Nothing. And I think it's great, and I hope they keep picking up property. And I have no other questions or comments at this time. So I will ask the applicant if they're here to make a presentation.
I have the applicant on Zoom.
All right. We invite you to speak. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Dana Rochat. I'm the Acquisitions Director for the Wildlands Conservancy. We'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be heard today. And as you already know a bit about us, the Eel River Canyon Preserve is an amazing location with 18 miles of river frontage, including 3 miles along the North Fork of the Eel and its confluence with the main stem. It was originally purchased during World War II by Dean Witter. The Witter family diligently cared for the land for over 80 years, leaving a legacy of protection, which will continue with wildland stewardship. The property has amazing forests with buckeye, big leaf maple trees, ponderosa pines, Pacific yew, Oregon white oak, Douglas firs, and so much more, including Roosevelt elk, among a lot of other wildlife and endangered species out there. Our intentions, as asked earlier, is that this becomes part of the Greater Redwood Trail. And there are a lot of tunnels and railroad tracks that have been abandoned that we hope to be able to connect, as well as public access in the future, which is all passive access. We have staff already on site who are managing the property, creating trails and safe access for the public in the future. Again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, Commission, for the applicant?
I do,
Commissioner yes.
since we've got Dana on the line here, and this is unrelated to this application, but Dana, what can you share with us today about what the public access will be to this preserve?
This location is a little unique because of its distance to any main area. Our other properties, which are more urban located, we always have free access for the public as well as free outdoor education for children and families. This location, because it takes so long to get to, will be offering more of an overnight venue with passive camping, which would be tent camping. We don't allow RVs or trailers or any generators so that everybody can enjoy nature. And it would be by reservation and controlled in the very beginning and limited in numbers. So we don't just open our gates and allow everybody to come in and out as they please. It will take us a few years to get trails and fencing and the campsite areas set up.
Thank you.
Thank you. So since there's no further questions for the applicant, for public comment, do we have any telecomments at this point?
I don't have anybody, but we can check online and see if anybody wants to talk.
There are no members of the public here for public expression.
All right. Since we have no public telecomment or somebody in the audience to speak, I now am going to ask staff for their final remarks. I did. Okay. Is anybody in the audience wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll go back to staff for final remarks.
Yes, Liam Crowley, planning staff, nothing further, thank you.
All right. And commission, do any commissioners have any final remarks? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and now the matters before the commission, and can I invite a motion from the commission?
I'd be happy to make the motion that by resolution, the Planning Commission recommends approval of A 2022-0005 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the findings contained in the resolution.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Jones seconds. May we have roll call?
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell.
Yes?
Commissioner Pollan.
Yes.
Chair Wiedemann.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for a good staff presentation. And thank certainly the Conservancy. Wonderful. We're going to move on to matters from staff. Do we have any matters from staff today?
Nothing today, thank you.
All right. And then I am going to matters from the commission. Do we have any matters from the commission today?
I think just two that we talked about earlier, just to remind us that if we only have one item looking like it's coming forward, maybe to see if we could, as I know it's hard to know exactly what's coming when you have to make a notice, but maybe try and combine it with another meeting. So that was one idea, and I'm forgetting what the other idea was now.
I believe you mentioned...
to check for quorum and let us know if we're going to have one.
Right. And any other commissioner have any other comments?
Well, I just wanted to follow up on a request that I made earlier for a brief VMT analysis tutorial. If there's a light duty meeting and we can squeeze in a 10-minute tutorial, I think it would actually be very interesting.
I'll just let the commission know, I will not be available on the 17th, so in terms of our quorum check.
Okay, all right. Right. Russ, were you going to comment?
I was just going to respond to Commissioner Purnell. Yes, we've done a couple of small internal trainings, so we might be able to coordinate with that training staff and have something presented to the commission.
All right. And I just concur, I mean, Nash left so that we don't have our director here, but we keep, you know, the ordinances timely, give us enough time, and we bring it up every meeting. So I think it's really like driven home. Okay.
Yeah,
So
hopefully they won't give it, the whole thing to us at one meeting and they'll
I
parse it out a little
think
bit.
Julia's trying not to do that, but it's good we just kind of keep them that we need the time to respond and do our job. And with that, I'm going to ask for an adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Just
Oh,
quick,
here's-
Deputy County Counsel, before we go to the next item, can we just check for public comment on the matters from commission discussion?
Do we have any public comment?
No members of the public on Zoom.
No, no public comment. Okay. So with that, we move for, I am asking a motion for adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Crazy.